Hi, it's Winton Churchill with the Barefoot Consultants. Welcome to Freelance Friday, where we talk about all things freelancing. Today, we're going to be talking about ways to improve your freelance business in an inflation economy. We see all kinds of headlines talking about companies laying people off, um, which is actually creating new freelance jobs. As every time they do that, some people say, "Oh, that's a terrible sign for the economy," which it might be, but it's a very good sign for freelancers because now, to a large degree, those companies that are laying off employees are going to have to replace the essential part of their jobs with skilled freelancers in one way or another. So that's what we're going to talk about today. There's certain types of jobs you can focus on as ride into this whatever sort of what looks like a little bit of a recession or that kind of thing that we're going to have. I mean, we've had a lot of these along the way. As a baby boomer or somebody that might be 50 plus, you've probably seen quite a few of these. Economic setbacks certainly in 2008 and in the also in the early 2000s with the dot-com bomb, when all the promising dot-com companies went out of business in a relatively short period of time. And then also I can remember certainly times around, we had the millennial bug that was going to shut down all the computers. It didn't, but everybody was worried about it. And then in the early 90s, we also had sort of economic setbacks and, companies laid off people, that sort of thing. So lots of different things come along to precipitate that happening. And the idea is that as the economy weakens, and we've looked at the Bloomberg article several times on this particular call, 75% of companies say now they prefer to hire freelancers over employees just because they can be more flexible with freelancers. They can pull in people that have certain skills and get them doing certain things and get them very productive. And Upwork will tell you that to hire a freelancer takes about 3 days. To hire it can take about 3 days. For a typical company to hire an employee takes about 30 days. There's all kinds of, interview process. You want to make sure if you're the company that you're getting the right person. So there's certainly just a lot more activity that goes into that. And then there's kind of the legal relationship that companies have with employees. There's a lot of paperwork to sign. There's a lot of potentially issues to work through on compensation. You have to describe the whole compensation basically for the coming year or 6 months, something like that. Versus with a freelancer, you can hire them for a small job. It might take 10 days. You work out the compensation and you're done. If you want to do that job again, which many employers do, you just start from the same point and say, was this about the amount of work that you thought? Was it the degree of difficulty you thought? And that's certainly, as a freelancer, a chance to renegotiate your relationship if you did more work. So the thing we want to think about is how you decompose jobs, and that's really what we're looking for. If a company lays off a middle manager, they may have been working on a department strategic plan or something like that at the top level of their work scale, but at the mid-range and bottom level, they might have been doing proofreading and editing of documents and reviewing PowerPoints or creating PowerPoints, that kind of thing. Or they might have somehow been involved in customer service, designing technical manuals, whatever it might be. And, the stuff at the very highest level, the strategic stuff, the tactical stuff, all those things are usually not something a freelancer can fit into right away, but all the other parts of that person's job are something that you can take somebody that has the skill and then is able to move into that. So that's the concept when we're doing this. I kind of like fishing analogies. When you go fishing, sometimes you'll use different bait. Sometimes you'll fish in different parts of a lake. There's usually a stream that feeds into the lake, and sometimes the fishing is really good right where that stream feeds in, and sometimes it's really bad right where that stream feeds in, especially if there's a lot of rain and that kind of thing recently. So you're looking for the areas that all these companies that are laying off people, and you see these jobs coming on to the freelance networks. They're popping up all the time, and you can just read them and say, we have an immediate need for a person that knows how to create PowerPoints from handwritten and typed descriptions, something like that. So that would be a fairly typical thing. And that's an indication that you might be, in some way replacing the part of the job that employee had done in the past. So lots of that. And certainly smaller businesses taking much more advantage of freelancers because they can't afford to hire full-time employees. And that's, going to continue. I mean, these financial cycles come along, and they have a duration, usually about a year and a half, something like that, maybe 2 years. And so for the next period of time, people are going to be watching their head count. They're going to they want to conserve the amount of fixed expense they have. And really what freelancing is it lets you turn your fixed expense of an employee into a variable expense. You can bring a freelancer in and say, hey, I want you to work for us 5 hours a week making Excel spreadsheets. And you say, fine. And they hire you five hours a week. And then a lot of times they'll find that, well, I really need you for 7 because that seems like what the workload is. And then they'll adjust up the number of hours a week or adjust them down as whatever they're working on tends to taper down. But it's really attractive to companies right now, and especially managers and especially owners of smaller and mid-sized companies, to be able to control their spend, the amount of money they spend every month, by this sort of ebb and flow, bringing in people and then releasing people and that sort of thing. And the interesting thing for freelancers is there's a lot of companies now doing this. So, you do one job and you work for somebody for a while, and then you pop out of that and you pop into another job for a different size company, and that might go for a week or 10 days or a month or 2, and then you pop out of that, and there's just all these people now that are breaking up what people used to do as employees and figuring out ways to parcel that out to freelancers working around the world, really. And that's one of the things that a lot of people, when they come into their program, they think, well, we're going to teach them about freelancing, but they think about freelancing in their own local area or in the country they're might be moving to, if they're planning on moving abroad or spending time abroad. And it's different than all that. It's really all about going on to a network and seeing jobs and assignments. I looked just yesterday, I guess it was something like 240,000 assignments up for grabs on any given day. And, sort of the typical 7,000 proofreading assignments and a couple thousand make me a PowerPoint presentation and that sort of thing. And within most of these networks, Upwork especially, as you get started, you're able to pick entry-level jobs, intermediate jobs, expert-level jobs, so you can get on there, get comfortable with what you're doing, get comfortable with working with a client. And it's a great opportunity to get to know somebody, because there are people turning to the world of freelancing now that have never even considered that before. So freelancing and understanding what's going on in the economy, not as many employees. There's work that still has to get done. You still have to meet with your clients. You still have to push things down the road. There's just lots of different things that you have to do. And so the first area I'd look would be in the area of simple tasks like proofreading and editing. And just a peculiarity of proofreading and editing, nobody knows where proofreading ends and editing begins. That can be a point of confusion, but the good news is usually somebody that's going to start you on a job like that is going to start you on a small job, and you can get an idea of how accurate they are in describing their jobs and how accurate you are in estimating how much time it takes and what you can charge for that kind of jobs. The other big area is customer service. Coming out of the pandemic, every organization on the planet had to figure out a different way to do customer service than they did in the past. They can no longer have 100 people in in a room full of cubicles because of social distancing and all that kind of stuff. They had a lot of people that are working from home. They're using different software. They're using different strategies. They're migrating calls. Usually when you call into a company, you're at level 1 customer service. That's where they answer the 10 or 20 most common questions that they have, and everybody's trained up on that. And then if it's more complex, you're kicked up to level 2, which are people that know much more about the product or service and can help you in greater depth. And then you're kicked up to level 3 if you're really an expert on their software and can actually make changes to things that may fix a problem that somebody's having, that kind of thing. As a freelancer, you're probably going to start out at working at level 1, but depending on your background and your understanding of the subject matter, you could rise up to level 2 or rise up to level 3, or you find that level 2 is the perfect job for you. You might be, in most cases today, you're answering questions not by phone or voice, you're answering by email, or in a system similar to email that's specialized just for solving problems. I'm sure you see those. If you have a problem with a product, you write to support and they open what's called a ticket or a trouble ticket, and then that kind of works its way through the system until it gets solved. It can be shared with other people internally. It can be remotely assigned to somebody that's working from home, and it can be tracked and managed, and the people that own the trouble ticket system are getting all kinds of feedback to say, hey, this call hasn't been responded to in 24 hours. So things like that help speed things along. And then simple things like PowerPoint. I need a PowerPoint presentation. I've got one from last year and I need these 3 pages of updates made to it. That's the perfect kind of job for a freelancer, to show their stuff, to get a piece of work and get out there and demonstrate what your skill set is. And in the process of demonstrating that skill set, you're understanding what business that particular client is in. You get a little sense, you go look at their website. Are they a big company, a small company? And you begin to think about the ways that you could work with them and how you could do other things. You don't want to unload on them as you're doing your first job. You never want to sort of dig for extra work until you completely satisfied on the front end. Most buyers tell me they don't want to hear boo from the freelancer until after that first job is delivered and they know that they can produce reliably. Because as you can imagine, in this day and age, there's a lot of people, freelancers included, that are flaky. They don't meet deadlines. They don't do the job as described, that kind of thing, because they don't realize that if they get confused about what to do in a job, you always have the freelance buyer that you can contact. And most people are terrified to make that contact, when in fact, that contact and that sharing of intermediate results and asking questions is what really helps the buyer get exactly what they want. And that's why the buyer contracted with you, because they want to get exactly what they want. And frequently, without talking to you, very hard to get that. So that's pretty much what I wanted to cover today. I mean, there's just a wide variety of opportunities out there, and lots of you just have to read the headlines every day to see what how companies are shedding employees. They're just kind of buckling down in order to survive as best they can the next economic downturn. And of course, these things can remain to be seen and can change at any moment. But most of the time, you're waiting. When something like this happens, these are fairly well understood cycles. They just happen. That's how it all pieces together. So we're looking for a bumpy road in the future, but the future is extremely bright for freelancers because of these layoffs and cost cutting that many companies are doing in terms of trimming their employee numbers. So we're going to see more of those announcements over the next few months, I'm sure. But every time you see one of those, think that there's a whole new set of freelance opportunities that have been created within that organization. So thanks for stopping by. For those of you listening on the recording, happy to have you here as well. Be sure and type any questions or comments into the chat on either Facebook or YouTube. We follow the chat windows as they go along, so be sure and stop by and ask a question. Give me your perspective. Do you see it differently? That kind of thing. And I'll be happy to answer that. And we'll be on our way to next week. See you again next week. Take care.